Hey, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
All right.
Got announced at E3. I probably would have bet you money that we wouldn't see it for a year, and then very surprisingly got not only a new trailer but like gameplay, like a real trailer.
Gameplay with English voices, with showing off the combat system, showing off Midgar.
That's a huge big thing. If they've got English voices, that means that it's further along than we thought it was. I mean, we're seeing gameplay already.
But the reason it's further along, and this is why I think it's a good thing, which we'll get to, is that it's a multi-part series now. Obviously, by this point, like everyone's talked about this isn't like new news anymore, but I do think it kind of gives us insight into what they might be doing with it. And Marty and I put a conversation up earlier this week exactly that. The reason I think this is a good thing is because we'll get it early. It means that like now we're going to play some part of this probably next year, as opposed to like in 2020 or whatever it would have been if they had actually like finished a full Final Fantasy VII Remake as like one full game.
Completely with you on this. I think that obviously we're at a point where people get really mad if they feel like they're being kind of nickel and dimed with games. Sure. I think it's totally worth pointing out that everything else is getting more expensive and gaming is getting increasingly cheap, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like you look at game catalogs from 15 years ago and they're like, Conker's Bad Fur Day is $117. Yeah. Like, why? Yeah. And the cost of entry has been kind of standardly across the board $60. And I hate to take the side of companies right now, but like you move to a new generation of consoles and you're adding more bells and whistles to everything. Yep. It gets increasingly expensive, and we've seen so many studios close and so many people get laid off and stuff. Yeah. If this is one of the ways they have to go about doing that, like breaking something into like. If the way they sell us an $80 game is by breaking it into 4 parts that are $20 each, I'm okay with that. Like
that's so this is
we don't know anything about pricing.
We kind of might. Yeah. Like that's what's interesting. So I mean,
so a lot of people when this first went up, they're like, oh my god, it's going to be episodic, and people were thinking like Telltale. People were thinking, this is going to be 2-hour episodes, and we're going to get them every month and a half. It's not going to be that. No. And then other people are like, well, I'm fine if it's 4 50-hour episodes that are full price a piece. And I don't think we're going to get that either. No. I think this is going to be 3 or 4 15 to 20-hour things.
Yeah,
well,
and
for how much?
What we keep for $60 each.
For $60 each.
I think it'll be like, so there are 2 interesting parts of it. One is the Final Fantasy 13 idea of you were getting a full game, and then Final Fantasy 7-2, and then Final Fantasy 7 Lightning Returns. You're just getting 3 kind of separate entries set in this universe that allow you to do different things. And they did a lot of interviews this week. Dengeki Online and Famitsu had interviews with Nomura that went up right after this got announced.
Did they say it's a trilogy?
No, they have not said numbers, but they did say each is a unique experience, and they talked about exploring parts of Midgar we've never seen. They talked about how big the world is, and so what Marty and I were talking about is that there's kind of 2 interesting sides to it. One is that this could mean the main game, what we know as Final Fantasy VII, is still all the first part of this, but then there's more to it in the second and third, or maybe you see it from Sephiroth's perspective or something like that.
I don't think that's the thing. No. I think the first part is going to entirely take place in Midgar.
In Midgar, yeah, and that's why we've only seen, like we've seen
the attacks on the reactor.
Right. Yeah.
I think we are going to, in 2016, I think we are going to get a 15 to 20 hour Final Fantasy VII game that ends with you leaving Midgar.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's totally right. I think it would be really interesting, because like, it's funny, I was just watching Zach's Final Fantasy in 7 minutes that we put out this week. There's a lot of stuff.
Everyone should go watch that.
Yeah, that is incredible.
It's really good. Yeah. Super well done. But like it's funny how much that game jumps back and forth without me thinking about it. Whereas you could kind of just make it 3, almost like we talked about with Beyond, how they did that new release lets you play it chronologically if you want to, rather than letting things jump back and forth.
Oh, I thought you meant this show.
Yeah, kind of like how we
sometimes we do chronological episodes.
Yeah.
Chronological.
That wasn't a word. But yeah, I think it's interesting. They can do all kinds of stuff like that. The other big part of this that's cool is that the Famitsu interview confirmed that CyberConnect is working with Square on some element of this. And they're the guys who made the Naruto game.
They made Asura's Wrath, Dot Hack.
Yes, they've done a whole bunch of stuff. And they say they're one of multiple developers. So a theory that we were talking about that I think is interesting is that maybe they're making this first part and other devs are making the second game and third game.
That could be fascinating.
Maybe we'll see different takes on this.
That could also make so many people so mad.
Yeah, totally.
I think people's apprehension about this entire business model is that, and I'm totally with everything you said, Max, about how, obviously we are, games are cheaper than ever in a lot of ways. And I think that episodic is a way to go for a lot of storytelling. But Final Fantasy VII is a story that's already been told non-episodically. Yeah. It's sort of like when we found out there would be 3 Hobbit movies. And it's like, well, there's only one, like there's one short, it's a short book. that you turned into 3 movies. Like, why did that happen? There's a way to tell that story in one film, and they didn't because they milked it or whatever. So I think people's apprehension on this one is that it's sort of like, wait a minute, you're gonna make me pay $180 or whatever it is for a 3-part version of a game that's already in one part. So that I can kind of understand, but I think like to that I would say like go play the old one. Like, or play any of the numerous remakes.
The old one, which is currently on PS4
On
now
the
with
same
trophy
console,
support.
yeah.
How much is it going for?
I don't know,
15,
20,
10 or
15,
Yeah,
15,
$15-20.
Okay, and that's got the thing where you can skip fights basically.
there's cheat
Yeah, it's got
codes.
like
Yeah.
cheat
Cheat codes,
yeah.
which honestly, like that sounds like a real wussy thing to say, but that is a grind of a game.
Yeah.
It's a
I
lot
mean,
of
any-
time.
any re-release of a game should be able to be like, hey, you can, in the same way you can fast forward a movie on Blu-ray
Yeah.
when you or jump around, like you should be able to do that.
Yeah, Brian was
I've-
talking about that.
Yeah.
Was that last week before?
Yeah,
I
I've
think
always
it's very
wanted
smart.
that sort of like, DVD menu of
Chapter
like
select.
bosses and like, key moments,
Cool moments.
cutscenes and stuff like that. Like, it's weird, like when we were kids in the 80s, we would get like video games would have like stage selects and like
Yeah. Or a
like-
password to go to a
the
specific level.
password thing made
Yeah.
that was how you got around save points and
Yeah.
stuff.
I think that's really smart.
and that just kind of went away,
Yeah.
God, I remember when what was it, Golden Sun switched from
Andrew
the way
Golden
to
Sun?
transfer your save. You had to put a like 300 character password
Yep.
in to transfer all your stuff, and it was so complicated. It's funny that we did that we were willing to do that.
Oh yeah, no, I remember
Sorry, that's a
playing.
tangent, but,
no,
like,
like
that's just
games,
really
games like
interesting.
Metroid for the NES
Yeah.
had 64 character codes, passwords you had to type in, and it would be like you would be, you'd be 7 years old and you'd be writing zeros and ones and O's for the first time ever.
Shout
And
out to
you'd go
Justin Bailey.
Yeah, Justin Bailey .. So you would go back into the game and you'd be like _ 001 lowercase p uppercase, and you was just like, dude, O is
I
screwed
just
up.
want some missiles. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and you'd screwed up, but
Yeah, I think this could be. I mean, that's a really interesting point that I hadn't heard anyone bring up yet. That is absolutely correct. That the Hunger Games and Harry Potter and The Hobbit and most of the people that have taken one cohesive story and split it up, frankly, like not when I say Harry Potter, I just mean Deathly Hallows specifically.
Right.
That they split into 2 parts.
They should have been doing that since Goblet of Fire. We're getting
I mean,
really off the
probably.
beaten path here.
Well, my point being that like most of the time that doesn't really work. Harry Potter is kind of the one time when it did. I think like I like those movies. Whereas
Yeah.
like the Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 2 was like
Yeah,
a mess.
but the thing that's
Hobbit was a
much
mess.
different, especially in an RPG, is that so say we get one of these games every year for 3 or 4 years, and that's again we don't know anything about that, but
I like
it's
that.
weird in an RPG. So I'm gonna level my characters. I'm gonna have a level 21 Cloud who's equipped with this type of Buster Sword and this materia,
Right.
and then a year later I'm gonna jump back in. Am I gonna be like, what the hell?
That's the big
like,
thing,
Who
right?
did I like? Did I like playing
Yeah.
as
But
Vincent? Did I like playing
what I'm
as Sid?
saying- That's what I'm saying about the different perspective idea. Like they haven't shown Tifa. They haven't shown so many other characters from Final Fantasy VII that I really think this first game is going to be Cloud and Barrett, and you'll level up those characters and you can play as much as you want. But it probably won't carry over to the next game. Like maybe there will be this new.
That's nuts, though. That's nuts. I mean, like
know.
that's the whole point. That's the whole point of an RPG is customization. It all comes down to that. And if you look at games like Telltale, which are episodic and have customization in the dialogue tree department and the decision department, those things kind of ebb and flow. But honestly, like I played through Walking Dead season 1. It was phenomenal. I loved it. Something screwed up transferring my save file, the Vita. And when I started Walking Dead season 2, it was just like, is it okay if we make some choices for you? And I'm like, yeah. And it didn't really matter. Like some things did here and there. Like some characters live, some characters don't. But
But that's
with an
'cause
RPG,
the
it's
same
like
story. Like that's
Right.
kind of what I'm saying. If it's like Final Fantasy 13, 13-2 are the example I keep going back to. 13 starred Lightning and Snow and all these other characters.
Right.
And 13-2 starred Noel and Sarah, who were totally different characters that you leveled up in a totally different way. And it was a separate thing where it didn't matter that your stuff from the first game didn't carry over
Yeah.
because you're not following the same people.
Yeah,
I
it's
I think it's possible to the way that Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, nothing carries over. Like if these are
It's weird because
if
we
they're
already
fully
know
separate,
this board has been laid almost
See,
20 years ago.
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
word, and that's I think Lucy was tweeting about that. It is weird to withhold parts of the story that we already know. I do totally agree with that. That is strange, but I just like I don't know. I think there are 1,000 ways this could go wrong. But I
Right.
think there are a few ways where it could go really well, and I think that's kind of the thing I'm waiting for. Where like I don't want to freak out till we have details.
Yeah, I mean to focus on the positive from PSX and the Final Fantasy VII section in the keynote, which I think was a kind of long, bloated keynote. We'll get into that, but this is definitely one of the highlights. It looks incredible.
Yeah.
The music's great.
I got chills.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, totally.
it's
It's incredible.
unbelievably gorgeous.
I was never hardcore into Final Fantasy. I like JRPGs in terms of they kind of came out into my life at the same time as anime did, and it
Yeah.
was like here's this foreign cool thing. There are also massive time sinks that involve a lot of grinding, and they're kind of tedious in that sense. I liked Final Fantasy VII as sort of just as a concept. I never was hardcore into it as a game. My friend played it. I'd go over to his house and watch him and stuff. But I also remember scrambling in the living room whenever an ad for the game would show up on TV.
Right.
And I'd get like right up to the screen. I was like, what is this? This is beautiful. It's like one of the most awesomely rendered worlds. And the first time I ever actually tried drawing, I mean, I've referred like not an anime character, but Japanese style, big eyes like that was Cloud. And I have this sketchbook somewhere, and it's like one page is like, yeah, it's Boba Fett and it's guys from Doom and Duke Nukem, and then you turn the page and there's Cloud, and it's like, oh, there's the beginning of a fascination with an entirely different universe.
I remember that EGM cover with Cloud on the cover. It was Cloud and
Max
he was like on
drew
a
that.
rock, and he
Drew that. That was Max's drawing.
You were an
really-
electronic monthly gamer.
But that's my thing about Final Fantasy VII. Like, frankly, I don't think Final Fantasy VII has anywhere close to the best story of any Final Fantasy game. But the characters are really iconic, and people do care, and it's the same reason that like these are the characters I wanted to see. Like I love Final Fantasy VI, and I wish they were remaking that game. But like it kind of is really cool seeing like Cloud and Barret and these like super iconic characters like in beautiful 2015 HD.
Yeah.
And the same reason like that's why you would want Cloud in Smash Brothers. Like it's like that is the character you want, because like that is the character, even though he doesn't have a Nintendo history, like for better or worse, he is the iconic Final Fantasy character now. He is the first person people think of.
It also,
and so I just think it's really interesting like why Final Fantasy VII of all of them is the one that has lasted.
We were at a bar last night, and the bartender started making small talk and asked what I did, and I said we worked at a website called IGN. He's like, oh, I used to go there a bunch. Like, I used to be a big gamer. And he's like, man, Final Fantasy VII, my favorite game of all time. And so we started talking, and we're like, they literally just showed they're making a brand new Final Fantasy with all those characters. And
when we were going to the next bar, I was like, God, I should have shown him the trailer on my phone, because it would have blown his mind.
Yeah.